Hey guys, this is going to be my review of The Undoing, episode 6. It is called The Bloody Truth, which is a great name and a great title for the finale. This is the finale. Took me off guard actually last night when I sat down to watch it and they said it's the finale, because I actually was half expecting there to be at least 8 episodes. You're sort of used to that with these HBO limited series, but no, this is the last one, and I think it makes sense when you see them play out and stuff. I think 6 feels like about the right number, although there have been times when I have felt certain episodes have dragged a bit, but I think this is the sort of show where how the finale lands, whether you get that sort of satisfying conclusion and ending to it, is going to go a long way to, summing up how you feel about the show. And this finale really lands. I think they really nail it. It's very well played. It's dramatic. It's, engaging, engrossing, all the rest of it. And I think you can see how the pacing for the season has worked pretty damn well in the end. I think the last 2 episodes, because it got off to a good start and then there was sort of a lull in the middle, but again, it's picked up at the right time at the end, the last couple of episodes. And I think this finale really nails it. It leaves you on a satisfying note, or at least it did with me. And there's one particular sort of development and twist which is very well handled in this episode, which I'll get to, but really pleased with this one. I think it's turned out to be this little gem of 2020, which I probably didn't expect, because for a lot of it I was enjoying it on the level of, just an entertaining like melodrama type thing. Obviously I talked about some of the dialogue and you've obviously got good performances in here, but it did seem like this kind of, this sort of satire where taking piss out of like rich people and all that and looking all very pretty while it does it. But yeah, in the end, I think the mystery of it turned out to be more compelling than I thought it was going to be for a long time. I think I speculated on the last review that maybe because it was teasing this, teasing that, going back and forth, that maybe the final like reveal and mystery wouldn't be that sort of satisfying, but it actually turned out to be really interesting and really caught me. So we'll get into it. I'll obviously do roughly a beat of what happened generally in the finale, so I'm going to go into full spoilers. Obviously, the big cliffhanger from last week was then Grace found found the hammer, which was the same hammer as was the murder weapon, which mysteriously had disappeared in Henry's room in his violin case. So that was kind of the big cliffhanger. Now, at the start of this episode, Henry basically claims that he hid it to protect his father, but some interesting stuff leads from this that unraveled, because he says he found it at the beach house. Obviously their father's, or Grace's father's, beach house, and found it weirdly in this it was off to the side in this sort of behind this these bricks sort of thing. I can't remember exactly where, but he says basically he hid it and didn't hand it over to protect his father because of how it would look. So they're having this conference, like they get together and Haley's there, and Jonathan says then it could have been Fernando. He could have planted it there. And they're like, what, at our beach house? How did he know where it was? And he says, because he probably followed us, as in me and Eleanor, because we went to the beach house. And this bit did take my sort of fancy because Franklin goes crazy at this. He's like lunging at Jonathan. Grace has to like get him for and it's like, you took your mistress to the beach house, to my beach house. It's really great stuff. But we also find out then, because this is something Haley brings up, John, the son, what's his name again? I always get the father and son. Oh, Henry, sorry. Henry, he washed the weapon. He says he washed it twice. And so Haley, in a way, that's sort of a good thing because it obviously cleans it and stuff if there is. But it's also a bad thing because at this point, if they're assuming someone else did the murder, then probably washed his. But also Haley brings up a very interesting legal point, and that is that they can't really hand it over now because, as she puts it, it would be another unexplained question that they would struggle to convince was innocent. She puts it quite nicely. She said basically it's too many coincidences at this point to explain away, so it would actually do more damage to us than good. And she also brings up the point that then Henry could be tried for obstructing justice, hiding this murder weapon. So it brings up all sort of juicy little things, and again it puts more heat on Jonathan just because he apparently took Elena to their sort of private beach house. And actually there's this great scene because at one point Henry goes to his bedroom and Jonathan and Grace have this big fight. And Grace is mad with him because he basically, his mind starts racing or appears to race and think that Jonathan or Henry, could he have committed the murder? And they're really mad, and Henry overhears it, and then he gets really upset with the father. And actually, Hugh Grant's overacting goes into overdrive in this scene with Henry, and it's kind of great because he's squirming, trying to convince him why he thought his mind raced to him, and he tries to turn it all around into a positive. He says, "Well, if I win this, and I will fucking win it," he says, some great swearing again in this episode. He says, "You'll see the real me, and then we'll go on a father-son road trip." And I mean, I like this scene anyway, but I think how they pay it off, what it leads to later in the episode is really good. But so we get into the court stuff in the episode, which is really strong again. Jonathan's on the stand. And his whole narrative that the defense he puts out, that he puts to his character as being someone who couldn't possibly kill someone, is that his background in medicine, his medical beliefs and interests, he basically puts it as he could never kill anyone. It's against his belief. His belief is as a healer sort of thing, and he talks more about his relationship with Elena and with her son Miguel, because it's Miguel he was treating for cancer, and he just says he became a son like me. But then the lawyer on the other side, actually starts poking little holes, because she brings out of Jonathan that after he, in his words, found Elena dead, or Eleanor, he actually went back to bed with his wife Grace, and she says, "Well, it's an unusual reaction. You just found your lover dead to just calmly go home," sort of thing. And there's also this little detail of, because he'd obviously wore a tuxedo that evening to the fundraiser, and apparently he had it washed later. So when they went on the trip, they were going to Lake somewhere or other. He actually had it washed later. He didn't have it washed all straight away, which looked can look a bit suspicious. So that's course one of this meaty court drama in this episode. And it is. Don't forget, David E. Kelley was the guy behind the practice, so he's quite used to like courtroom dramas and stuff. And in the next sort of big scene, Henry is kind of being a little shit again to Grace. He's kind of, there's this thing in this episode, probably the weakest part of the episode, where she makes a point of saying, "Why do you keep answering a question with a question?" And she says it to Henry in this scene, and he is being a little shit again. He's kind of coming to his father's aid and kind of trying to get out of Grace than she will take Jonathan back, and they can be a family again. And again, Grace doesn't want to talk about it now. But we then get to Miguel on the stand. That they call him, Haley does, and it's a big surprise. Apparently, it is on the witness list, but the other lawyer didn't know about it, or it was a surprise anyway. But they get him on the stand, and at this point, I will say, great acting from the guy, the kid who plays Miguel. He is very good in this scene, and because we haven't seen much of him, just a little bit, so he didn't have that much chance to really show us. But he's really good in this scene. He's very convincing. So. Very sort of nervous, very sort of like awkward and uncomfortable, but very sort of, yeah, endearing as well. He's very endearing. And Haley, to her credit in this scene, does tread very lightly. She is very sensitive, and she just asks one or two questions. They're almost factual questions, about what time he goes to bed normally, and obviously getting information about the night in question. And it was between 9 and 6:30, or he went to bed at 9, he got up about 6:30, and she sort of says, well, could you have gotten up at any time during that period, because obviously the murder probably happened during that time. And he says, well, sometimes I get up for a drink in the middle of the night. And Haley says, was that night one of those times? And he kind of awkwardly says, I can't really remember, to be honest. And she doesn't press him, so fair play to Haley in that scene. But she also gets Miguel to admit that sometimes there were strong arguments between the parents, and that sometimes they did turn quite nasty, and that they did frighten him, and that he spoke to it with a teacher apparently, but that was the only person. And again, I think this scene does a good job in playing with your emotions, because at one point it crossed my mind that Haley was going to maybe turn it on Miguel and maybe treat him as a suspect, or that maybe Miguel was going to slip and like give us some sort of juicy opening again to pursue Fernando as a potential killer. But get rid of that. But they don't do that. I mean, obviously, Haley's trying to get that sort of out there, and get the fact that she got Miguel to say then sometimes there was friction in the marriage, and they were quite sort of aggressive towards each other. I think that was, something for their side, but she did tread very lightly, even though it did piss Fernando off, the father, then his son was put on the stand. So yeah, there's that stuff. But what's interesting now is that there's a scene in the bathroom like after Miguel's been on the stand, between the lawyer, I can't remember the character's name, but the actress out of The Killing, I'll just keep saying, who does a great job again. She's really good in this episode. She's a good actress. But there's a scene in the bathroom with her and Grace's close friend, who's also a lawyer, and the Killing lawyer, as I'll call her, is just disgusted with that and stuff, and the stuff with Miguel, and they kind of have this exchange where I think Grace. Jesus. Okay, I'm going to turn this. Okay, no more interruptions, hopefully. So they have this exchange when... Right, hang on, I'm going to turn this back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, there's this exchange between them in the bathroom, and it's a weird sort of thing because it cuts away from it quite quickly, and Grace's friend says, "Are you alright?" basically, and so there's going to be something else, and there's a reason they're showing this scene, and this leads into like the twist of the episode, or I think it does, because Grace says she wants to take the stand. She says she's the most credible person to speak to Jonathan's innocence, that she can present the correct narrative. And actually Haley questions why, because Grace appears to have a lot of doubts over Jonathan's innocence. And Grace says, well, no, actually, I'm pretty sure he's innocent. I'll speak to it. I'll speak to his character. And obviously, potentially, she could be the most compelling, character witness for Jonathan. She could really have a big impact on which way the jury goes. So they agreed to let her on, and this twist is just glorious, because she comes on and initially, now bearing in mind, she's initially saying she'll lie in a way, or at least twist the truth just to help Jonathan get off, sort of thing. Or at least I read it like that. I mean, other people might read it differently. But in effect, she can't be 100% sure of his innocence, and she has had doubts. So there's a certain amount of, mixing truth with, anyway. So she agrees to go on. At first, she's backing up Jonathan and kind of saying, well, yeah, because of his passion for medicine, his kind of... yeah, then it's not in his nature to kill, all that sort of thing. And the lawyer obviously questions her and kind of says, well, what about your belief? And Grace, again, makes this point that because I'm a psychologist, I have an instinct for this thing. I can read people, so I can read my husband. I know him better than anyone. I know that he's not a killer, he wasn't capable. But this whole psychologist direction that they go with Grace actually leads to the lawyer sort of picking holes. And she brings up the fact then, well, first of all, she picks a hole in Grace's claim that Jonathan has never been violent towards her, because actually she brings up what happened at the beach house where when Jonathan showed back up originally after he'd gone missing, and that he actually did grab Grace, grabbed her, put his hand over her mouth, And she explains, he did it to try and calm me down, stop me from maybe screaming and, drawing it, that sort of stuff. But that's one sort of bit she picks off. The other more juicy bit is the fact that Grace actually, and they play like the recording that Grace, the phone call to the police, then Grace is actually scared for her life. So that's quite more damning, the fact that she was actually like physically afraid for her life, or at least she claimed to be on the telephone to the police. And yeah, so that's actually on the phone, so that's a bit more damning. And then the next bit, they go into her being a psychologist, and that's used against her because they bring up the fact, or the lawyer does, then Grace, has this theory about narcissism, and that it's something which could apply to Jonathan. And it just goes into the fact that it's a medical theory or a belief that Grace has as a psychologist, and that, Jonathan could well have narcissism. And the other big bit, which again is nicely paid off from last week, is the conversation Grace had with Jonathan's mother, which clearly Jonathan didn't know anything about. You can see it in his face. And it goes back to Jonathan's dark past with the sister, and the comments about that the mother made. Then Jonathan had no remorse. He never allowed himself to mourn his sister's death. So that's words that the lawyer repeats: no remorse, and he never came to terms. And that, then this really goes to his nature, the fact that he could be a sort of a potential killer, the fact that he's quite cold-blooded, he doesn't seem to mourn in the normal way, he's never shown remorse for his sister's death. And what's great about this scene as well is that Hayley is losing it. She's ejecting every time. She's trying to saying this isn't relevant sort of thing, and the other lawyer's like bouncing back saying, well, it goes to character and stuff, and you called this witness and stuff like that. And at one point Hayley's like screaming for a mistrial, and they get undone. The twist is, and they can't, because Grace was called by Hayley's side. You can only really call for a mistrial and claim this isn't relevant, this is going off the sort of topic of things, if the lawyer was called by the other side. But because it was called by Hayley's side, everything's fair play. This cross-examination, this going to Jonathan's character. And also I like, because they cut between the friend, Grace's friend, you can see her looking and as Grace is talking, and there's this thing where I think that the twist to that is that Grace's friend gave the lawyer some information in the bathroom to use. I think that was the point of that scene, that she actually gave us some stuff she can use, because this is probably stuff that the lawyer couldn't have known. She probably didn't know about Grace talking to Jonathan's mother, at least. So it's really well played, and the whole reveal is then they set them up. Grace set this thing up with with Franklin as well, and with the friend. You see them sort of walking out, and they're hand in hand, Grace, Franklin, the friend, and that's it. She's turned it around, she's twisted it on Jonathan, and she's actually, see, in a way, she has told the truth, but she's gone against what she was going to say, and she's made Jonathan look potentially very guilty. And I just love, it's a great twist. It's very nicely played, the detail of the friend in the bathroom with the lawyer. And I just love the reaction, Hayley and Jonathan, because Jonathan's like, she's fucked us. And Hayley, who is just as mad, I should say, maybe more so, is kind of saying, well, your son didn't throw away the hammer. He didn't destroy that piece of evidence. How fucking stupid can you be? And he's like, you fucked us, Jonathan. You fucked us. It's glorious stuff. It's a brilliantly played twist, and it's absolutely great. So suddenly things have swum back in the other side's favour. Jonathan suddenly looks very guilty, whereas before I think Haley had created enough of a doubt that they may have been winning the case, or things might have been going more their way. But now the tables have turned. It's not looking good for Jonathan, potentially. So the very end of the show actually does reveal, what happened on the night. But we also have this extra sort of drama of Jonathan basically doing a runner, because I think he knows that he's maybe screwed, then this could turn the verdict against him. So I guess in a rather poetic sort of way, he takes the road trip with Henry, because he says they're going for breakfast, but Henry soon cottons on to the fact that actually they're not, because they seem to be going out of their way. And this is, of course, the day when the verdict's going to be read out, so Jonathan has to be in court, and they realise he's gone missing and he's taken the son. And again, this is a brilliant climax to this whole thing, where we actually see Jonathan unravel and we see the real kind of unhinged psychopath come out, and it's really well played. He starts, Henry is getting scared, they're in the car, and it again plays with this idea of Hugh Grant as this, attractive, roguish sort of figure, this charming, like, romantic lead that he has been in films, but also the darker side. And that's what we see, and that's why he was cast from the start in this, and that's why the casting, I think, makes total sense, because it's playing with that whole persona and the darker side. The fact that he's meant to be this family man, this dashing doctor, everyone, seemingly liked him, but underneath there's this darkness lurking. And so what the final scene actually does really well is it splits between him in the car with Henry and the stuff in the past. It flashes back to that night, the night Eleanor was killed. And so at one point he's singing a song in the car with Henry, and it's a song they sang when Henry was younger, and it's cutting between that and this much more aggressive side to him that we see the night with Eleanor. But at the same time, he's very unhinged in the car, and slowly Henry's starting to get more frightened. But the way it cuts in between these two scenes, him in the car with Henry, him with Eleanor, it actually makes you go back and forth. Did he kill her? Did he not? Because it shows a scene with Eleanor where after they've slept together and she's again being quite possessive and sort of demanding that they stay together, then he's not going to leave her, then he becomes aggressive and he does kind of grab her and push her back and sort of threatens her, you're not going to mess up my family, that sort of thing. But then it goes back to the car with him and Henry. So it slowly unravels, and it makes you question, did he actually kill her? Did he not? Was this as far as it went? But when we finally get to it, what happened is Eleanor charged at him with a hammer. He blocked her, he cut her off, he grabbed the hammer, and that's when the real psycho comes out, because he pins it. And this is really brutal. They don't hold back. I guess, hey, HBO can get away with this stuff, but you do see him hammering her in the head several times, and he killed her. And the sound of it is very effective as well, but we really see the psycho in Jonathan come out in different ways, actually, in the car with Henry when he's being possessive and he just wants the father and son. It's almost like he knows he's screwed, and he screwed himself even more with his actions here with Henry, because at least if he went to the trial, there was a possibility he could have got off. It was still kind of in the balance, even though the scales had been tipped. But he's like doubly screwed himself now, and it's almost like an admission of guilt. But I really like that contrast between him and Henry in the car and the stuff with Eleanor. It really it keeps it tense and makes you think, well, did he do it? Did he not? And it goes back and forth. But very well played. And what happens is he appears to be about to commit suicide, like the police helicopters are bearing in on him. It's all very dramatic stuff, and I love the fact that Grace is, and the father, I think, is in the helicopter, or at least Grace is. But they go to a bridge, they stop on a bridge, and well, it shows you what a psychopath Jonathan is, and a narcissistic one, because he appears about to jump and his son's right there, and Grace is terrified because potentially not only the effect it's having on her son, but if he tries to stop the father anymore, could he end up carrying over with her? And she gets to them, and I kind of thought then Jonathan would jump. It would just be that dramatic sort of irony, and the fact that he did go out in a blaze of glory, and it was almost like his ultimate come up, and so the fact that he committed suicide. But no, they did get to him, and they arrest Jonathan, and that's it. That's the dramatic end of The Undoing, and I thought it was great. I loved the courtroom stuff. I thought that particular twist with Grace taking the stand and how that unravelled and revealed itself was very well done. I think it sort of shows you, although a lot of courtroom dramas can be quite dry and quite bland, I think it does show you why the legal system can be an intriguing thing to use in a drama, because the little details in there, the way that played into the plot, and Jonathan unraveling was very interesting, very compelling to watch, and the ending, I think, ended it sort of perfectly as well. It was really dramatic. It really just showed what an egomaniac, what a psycho Jonathan actually is, and it all comes out. And the whole stuff with him and the son, which has been quite a big theme from the start, was like really glorious and really dark and very, very disturbing, but very entertaining as well. So yeah, the finale really delivered, and as I said, this is the sort of show where if the finale delivers, then I think it does really boost it quite a lot. So very enjoyable stuff from The Undoing, some really great acting and casting as well. So I liked it a lot. In the end, maybe one or two episodes dragged a bit, but I think the important thing is that it was consistent for most of it, and the finale really delivered. So that's my thought on HBO's The Undoing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think overall? What did you think of the finale? Was you happy with the way they resolved the whole thing? And yeah, just let me know your overall thoughts on it. I can say that the next HBO show, which will be replacing The Undoing, is season 2 of Euphoria, and that's of course a show which I reviewed last year on the channel, the first season. Certainly led to some quite meaty discussions, and I'm going to be returning again for season 2 starting next week. So Euphoria coming up this week, season 2. So I'll see you guys again soon. Like and subscribe, all that if you're new to the channel, but see you guys soon. Goodbye.